Until a few years ago, these were actually illegal. These are over-the-counter hearing aids. You see, 48 million people have hearing loss, and until a few years ago, the landscape was a lot simpler. You either did nothing for $0 or went to an audiologist, spent a lot of money, and probably went to many appointments until you had hearing aids that actually functioned. But in 2022, the FDA approved over-the-counter hearing aids in the United States, which open up the landscape to 3 new options. You've got the cheap Amazon junk, which kind of gives over-the-counter hearing aids a really bad reputation. Many people buy them for $100 or less, and they're very disappointed by the performance. You technically have AirPods. I'll talk more about that later, but they're not really designed as hearing aids. And then you have premium over-the-counter hearing aids like these. So in this video, I want to do a bit of an overview or a review of these hearing aids and tell you more about how they work, what you need to know about them, and decide if they're actually worth buying. Now, I know this video is a little bit different than most of my content, so if you don't need hearing aids or you don't know anyone who needs hearing aids, my only request is that you please click the like button so that this video doesn't get buried and other people can watch it. My hope is that this content can help people to improve their quality of life by learning more about over-the-counter hearing aids. So, for anyone sticking around, if either you have hearing loss or you know someone with hearing loss, this could be a really great option for you. So these are the Sony CRE-C20. Sony makes several models of hearing aids, I believe 2 or 3 different models. And this one, these are the rechargeable, self-fitting, over-the-counter hearing aids. They're very, very tiny, as you can see right here. They fit in this little case, and the actual hearing aid is quite tiny, so it's almost invisible. I'll talk more about visibility when you're wearing them a little bit later, but on the back of the case, you'll see a USB Type-C port. So this holds 3 recharges in here. So if you're traveling for the weekend or something, you can take the case, and that's an easy way to not only hold the hearing aids but also recharge them. And you get 28 hours of listening or use with this case and with the hearing aids. So that's pretty convenient. You can also just set this on your bedside, keep it plugged in all the time, and then every night just put them in the case and they'll recharge for morning. And you'll notice the case has LED lights on the front, so to tell you the battery level. You've got a little LED indicator on the bottom as well as a button so you can put it into pairing mode. And on the back, like I said, USB Type-C, but this also has Qi wireless charging, so you can set this on a wireless charging pad and charge it up very easily. Just another way you can maybe use this next to your bed without having to find maybe someone who doesn't have great eyesight. You don't want to always have to find that little port right there, so setting this down is a very easy way to charge it. It's also worth noting that these are IP68 water resistant. So if you wear these and you forget to take them out when you're showering, or maybe if you wear them and it starts raining outside, these should be absolutely fine with water contact. These use an ear-to-ear wireless link, so they should sound really good, very well synced, and not giving you any kind of crazy noise. They have an automatic adjusting microphone. I'll talk about that later in the video. And they really do give you some pretty clear hearing, even in noisier environments. So let's start off by talking about how these work and how these fit. So each hearing aid, you can see, has a little tiny stem. It's probably hard to see on camera there. It's honestly a very tiny unit itself. And you've got this little silicone rubber tip on there. And there are several different ones that come in the box. So let me open up the box. I'll show you what this comes with. Of course, you've got the manual. It tells you about the app, and I'll show you the setup in just a second. Then you have this little pack of the different sizes. So extra small, medium, large. It comes with small already on there. So 4 different sizes. You have, of course, a USB Type-C charging cable here. It's also worth noting that Sony has both closed sleeve and vented sleeve options, depending on how you want it to sound and feel in your ear. You get a small brush, a microfiber cloth for cleaning these. I believe that's my other tip right there. And when you look at the actual hearing aids, you can see they have a small white outline there. I'll try to really zoom in on this, and it shows you where you're supposed to line up that rubber tip. So you find the one that fits best for you, and there is a test on the app when you first set it up to help you make sure that you have the right fit. But the app you'll be using is called Sony Hearing Control, and when you first set it up, it'll have you do a hearing profile test. So you put in just the left one and then just the right one, and I'll demonstrate right now. So I'll put the right one in my ear, which, by the way, you want it to kind of, it says right and left, and you want the stem pointing down. It kind of goes in your ear almost the opposite way I initially expected it to. So now I can say, do you hear the confirmation beep? Yes. And then it'll play a series of beeps in different frequencies and different volumes. So this probably takes about 10 or 15 minutes to actually set these up, but you'll see it plays beeps. It'll ask you how many beeps you heard, and then you can say, you heard 0, you heard 1, you heard whatever. And obviously you don't want to try to lie on this and say you heard more than you did. If you didn't hear it, then obviously you want to say that so it can make a custom hearing profile for you. And this is going to actually make a prescription grade sound quality hearing profile based on your own hearing. So if you were interested in buying these, you can buy them from Sony's website. I'll have a link down below. Those links help to support the channel at no cost to you, or you can find them on, several other websites out there. But one thing to note is if you buy it on Sony's website, it is HSA and FSA eligible. So if you have a health savings account, you may be able to use that to purchase these. So once you're done with that hearing test, it will then apply the hearing profile to the left and to the right. You can see it's applying it to the right now. We'll say yes. We'll say continue. And now you can adjust the loudness and the sharpness and the dullness. So you could say, all right, it sounds good, but I want a little more volume in the left ear or a little more volume in the right ear. We can then say continue. And they make this app really quite intuitive, in my opinion. Very large text everywhere, just simple buttons, not a whole lot going on here. So let's say done. And now we could just have general volume control right here. So if we can make them louder, or we can make them quieter if we wanted to. But one thing to note is that these are not Bluetooth earbuds. These will not play the audio from your phone. These are only functioning as hearing aids in your ears. There is a different model, the CRE-C10, I believe, that does also work as an earbud. So if you want to listen to music or podcasts or watch videos on your phone, you can do that. But with these, like I said, you're not going to be getting Bluetooth audio from your phone. They're just functioning as regular old hearing aids. On the bottom, you'll see not only do we have volume, but we also have the sound balance. So if you want it to sound a little more sharp or a little bit less sharp, you can adjust how that sounds right there. And on the top left, you can tap on that little hamburger icon there, the menu. And of course, we've got remote control, which is where we just were. You've got fine tuning. So if you want to adjust the hearing aid, you can do that by tapping OK or continue. We could do some fine tuning, and you could say, all right, I like the way this sounds, but I really want to focus more on maybe speech. Maybe speech is not quite good. And you could say speech is right now a little bit too soft. So you could then say continue, and it will adjust our settings. So we could say, all right, here, try this solution right now. It'll apply them, and you can listen to people talking and say, oh, that fixed the problem. We're good. Or you could try different solutions. So it adjusted it, and it actually, wow, I could actually hear that right now. That's a wild difference. I'll say yes, and we can then say done. So that's one of the ways you can fine tune things. You don't always have to, you never have to go to an audiologist with this, but it's kind of a nice feature they have there. Going back to where we were, I'll say leave. We can tap on the little menu icon on the top left. Hearing aid setup is what we already did. If you go into settings, you've got a couple basic things right there, but not really much that you need to do on this app. Also, on the top right, you have a battery with a question mark. So that's going to tell you the battery level. You can say tap to check the battery. It'll give you a number of beeps. So 3 beeps means it's above 80%. And that's what mine just gave me. It beeped 3 times in my ear. Same thing with the right earbud or right hearing aid. So it looks like we're good on battery. So let's talk about the aesthetics of these earbuds. These are not skin matched in color, so they are going to be more visible than some other options out there. But that said, they are incredibly small, so it really is quite hard to see unless you're looking directly from the side. Anyone in front of you or behind you is very unlikely to really notice the earbuds, and they're small enough that I don't think anybody would ever really find them intrusive or uncomfortable. I've worn these for several hours, and I had no problem with them. They're easy to forget they're even in your ears. And with the many different fits, I think a lot of people will find them very comfortable. As far as the sound quality goes, as somebody who does not have hearing loss, I'm definitely very sensitive to the audio on these, and I think that they sound quite good. Your voice may sound a little strange anytime you're wearing hearing aids. Hearing your own voice is going to be a little bit odd. It might sound slightly muffled or a little bit kind of tunnely, but other voices sound very natural. And here, it really just sounds like what you would normally hear, but significantly louder, especially when it's tailored to your own hearing profile. Another positive with the comfort is that these don't go over your ears at all. So that means that you're not going to have any interference with glasses or hats or your hair. And it's going to be really hard to, accidentally pull these out. These are pretty deep in your ear, and you really have to go in and actually grab them intentionally to take them out. So I think that's kind of a big positive there. If we're getting into some of the negatives, one is that they don't seem to use Bluetooth. They use kind of an audio communication between your phone and the hearing aids. And I'll show you an example right now. If I change the volume or really any setting on my phone speaker will make a really high pitch, kind of sound, almost like echolocation sound. And that's how it communicates to the hearing aid. So listen to this. And it's a really high pitch, and I think a lot of people may not even hear that. As far as the little tip on here, it does seem to stay on really quite well. I was originally worried, like, what if that got stuck really deep in your ear? But it seems that, I mean, out of every time I've put these in and taken them out, that tip never even comes loose. It never even seems like it would come loose. And so I'm not particularly worried about that. As far as any questions or assistance with these, Sony does have a full-time dedicated team, the Sony Here team as they call it, which is free with unlimited support. As soon as you buy these, you have access to that. You don't need a subscription or anything. And they're very helpful to, answer any questions you might have and make sure these are working for you. Other things to note, there are no controls on the earbuds at all, so any controls will be done on your phone, but you do not need to have the app nearby. If your phone dies or is somewhere else, these will still function using the most recent settings they actually had. One thing I don't want to brush over too quickly is the price of these. These are certainly not cheap hearing aids. These are around $900 to $1,000, which, as I mentioned, is definitely significantly cheaper than a lot of the options from, audiologists, although sometimes insurance may pay for the audiologist hearing aids. If you are buying this for yourself, though, and you have an HSA, that could be a great way to get access to something, without having to go to an audiologist. And I know a lot of people, probably 4 in 5 people who need hearing aids, do not get them, probably because of the inconvenience or the price of going to an audiologist. So this could be a great option. There are cheaper options on Amazon, as I said, that are usually significantly lower quality. If you do look at any of them, the only thing I recommend is that you ensure that they are in fact FDA cleared. Otherwise, they may just be low quality earbuds. And of course, the AirPods Pro 3 also kind of work as hearing aids, although they are significantly larger and they look a little bit strange. But for $250, they do a surprisingly decent job of acting as hearing aids. But that's my quick review of the Sony CRE-C20s. I hope you found this video helpful. Either if you are getting these, let me know in the comments down below how they perform for you, or if you're buying these for somebody else, maybe a parent or a relative. Again, I wish you the best of luck, and I would love to hear comments down below about how these actually performed for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.